Here we go.
All right. It's just us. All right. This one, we were just talking, and it's not dark. It's somewhat heavy, but it's not dark. This one had a life of its own. I was telling her that I went into my room I wasn't even planning on putting the list together yet. It was because it was earlier today, and this one just sprung on me. So it was like it was queued up, ready. So
Cute.
yeah. So we'll see where it goes.
Yeah, it doesn't necessarily feel dark. It just feels very big.
Yeah,
so that's
it's pretty big. This one has multiple levels, so we'll see where it goes.
Mm-hmm.
I wrote down a lot, but we'll see where it bears. All right, the first item is Animal Kingdom. All animals were put here as a backdrop of survival and variety, including humans. This includes cycles of thriving and desperation in order to learn and apply the learning. In the simplest terms, humans aren't much different than other animals. Where humans are different is in the ability to take responsibility for more than just their survival. They wake up to just living and realize there has to be more. Okay, so this is giving things context. So going back in time, but what is time? To me, this is a process of waking up. At first, many of us are basically animals in the animal kingdom. We get impetus to eat, to drink water, to go to the bathroom, to have kids. And in order to do that, we need to work and make money. That still doesn't, it requires thinking, but we're animals who can think, just like an elephant can think. We're just on a little bit different scale, but we're still part of the animal kingdom. But there comes a time when some of us realize that there's got to be more to this. So that's what that item kind of points to. The next one is first steps of sentience. Rider or the horse, farmer or the forager. We begin to make the environment work for us. So we start to take charge of the animal kingdom, of making things work for us, make the horse work for us, make technology, however you want to describe technology, make things work for us. Stop foraging and we start farming and doing things of that nature. This is all symbolic, okay? But it's also can be literal in the history of, say, humankind. So the first steps of sentience is we started realizing we can do more than just what the animals are doing. We can actually take charge of the animals. So that's the first steps of sentience. And we all have this somewhere inside us. It's just, how does it present itself?
I get it. We also can take control of ourselves. The animal in ourselves.
Okay.
At that
Well,
point.
now you're getting down.
Yeah.
So I'm kind of following a stream, but the first steps of sentience is external. Really, it requires some thinking about how to make your life better, and that's where you start to go beyond your typical work, and you start to say, well, how can I be a bit more efficient? So it's sentience, but in the wakingness, it's still kind of minimal. Okay. So then we have the next level, which is called blind sentience. We settle for just being above the rest of the animals in order to make our lives easier. We stop advancing as a species because we're more advanced than all other animals. There's nothing else to compare to. Compared to all other animals, we're the apex. We've figured things out. We've made the animals, we made the environment work for us. So we've done that. Now many of us start to get complacent. We start basically just maybe leaning towards a life of luxury or status quo. It's not bad. It's just, this is a progression. Okay, so we have that what I call blind sentience. And the next one is beyond sentience. And I call it, this is my term for it, metatience.
Say it again.
Metatience.
Meta, M-E-T-A.
M-E-T-A, metatience. So if you look up the word meta, you can see what goes in it. Meta is kind of like a prefix. There's a lot of definitions for it, but if you kind of read around, you'll get it's thinking of itself. So it's advancing itself by utilizing itself. There's some other definitions. I don't know how it came up with it. It just came to me. So it made sense when I felt the word out, and it kept coming back, because anytime I get something at first, I often push it away and see if it comes back. And if it keeps coming back, then I start to really consider it. And this one kept coming back to the point where I went to go look it up to see if it was actually a word. And it's not a word. Meta is, and we know about sentience, but this is beyond simple sentience. But I got the word metatience, so I looked up the word meta, and then I had the epiphany. It was like, oh, wow. And then, so I thought, okay, I understand that. That's here, metatience. So this says the early stage is that we begin to separate or backdrop ourselves from ourselves. This phase is chaotic in that we are fighting ourselves in order to break through our self-imposed blind sentience. The masses are content to stay as masters of the animal kingdom, while a segment of outliers are compelled to push into a new kingdom of beingness. That's what's been going on for decades. Most people don't know about the outliers. They've been doing it as outliers. So the masses, with the help of the media and everyone else, shuns them, keeps them. Meanwhile, these people have been waking up and pursuing what there's got to be more to life. Something's calling me. Something's compelling me to look beyond the blind sentience. So that's that one. This is a critical junction that we've been in for quite a while. So that's important to note. Again, symbolic, but there's also a literal sense to it. The next one is metasentience. So these are the people, the outliers. The hands that rock the cradle. For these people, working, propagating, surviving, and mastering the animal kingdom is not enough. They are compelled to more, but realize they are but the hands of a larger collective and need the attached body to accompany them. These hands begin to energetically rock the cradle of humanity, slowly at first, but with more intent as time begins to compress against the bottleneck of the looking glass.
Read that again.
The whole thing?
The last couple sentences there. After you said slowly at first, and then...
These hands begin to energetically rock the cradle of humanity, slowly at first, but with more intent as time begins to compress against the bottleneck of the looking glass.
Yeah, that has a lot of meanings.
Yes, it does.
Yeah.
For those who are following a certain letter of the alphabet, will get this. And if you are compelled to look some of these things up, you'll find that there's a lot of stuff out there.
Yeah.
And it starts to put things into perspective.
Mm-hmm.
For those who are not ready, hey, that's up to you.
Yeah, and the cradle rocking is, there's a somewhere you stay asleep, and then there's a rock that's like a wake up rock. Yeah. So.
And that's with the more intent. Okay. So all of that was set up for this.
Okay.
Moving beyond fear to the waters of life. Despite their own fears, although relatively diminished, metaticians anchor the bridge of acceptance along the path of the one timeline to which births the body into the still waters of life. As the contractions of fear are induced, we must endeavor to push through its cervix.
I was getting the birthing feeling. Yeah.
Marianne Williamson said, "Our deepest fear is not that we are inadequate. Our deepest fear is that we are powerful beyond measure. It is our light, not our darkness, that most frightens us. We ask ourselves, who am I to be brilliant, gorgeous, talented, fabulous? Actually, who are you not to be? You are a child of God. Your playing small does not serve the world." Remember, FDR said, the only thing we have to fear is fear itself. As metaticians, we especially empathize with where we go one, we go all, as a body.
Yes.
That is what we aren't trying to get through this individually. Becoming a metaphysician means you realize what's the point of getting to the finish line if you're the only one that makes it. You start to become more responsible than yourself. Something about the species becomes your focus. Why that is, I don't know. To me, it's the collective calling. It's realizing you are but the hand, and that there are feet, and there are fingers and toes and knees and ribs and whatnot, and that we are just a part of a bigger body that requires an opening of the mind to recognize that positioning. Many people may feel it and say, I'm not going to do anything about it yet. I don't feel compelled to move beyond just maybe realizing it a little bit. But the outliers, the real metaphysicians, they feel compelled that there is more out there and that it is drawing them near. How do I know this? Because the awakening crowd is becoming bigger and bigger and bigger. Yeah. You may not realize this, but if you open up your empathy, and in order to do that, you have to get rid of your fears. You have to minimize your fears so that you can reach out. You'll start picking up that there are more and more people. I mean, how did Donald Trump win the election? I'm not talking about the man. I don't how he is or what he is. He's the way he is in order to be an agent of change. But there's no way he was going to win under the current status quo.
Right.
He was not slated to win. Now, why didn't Clinton and the rest of the gang fight it? They could have. They could have easily. They had everything going for them. They could have easily found a way to take the election, but they didn't. I'm thinking that enough people were woke that they couldn't fight against that. And ever since then, whether people realize it or not, universe has been slanting things away from the status quo and moving it towards something new. What is that something new? Well, universe doesn't want to state what it is. Universe doesn't even want to have a real say in exactly what it is and leave it up to to the agents of the source. That's us.
Yeah.
We start deciding what it's going to be, what it's going to look like. Is it going to look like Star Wars? Is it going to look like Star Trek? Is it going to more than likely it's going to be a mishmash of all these things as we start to delve into it and start to say, do I like this or do I like that? But the most important thing is we start shedding the old status quo, all the limiting things, all the things that make us small, all the things that cause fear. We're pushing those things out. In fact, we're moving beyond them. You may still feel fear. That's not bad. It's what do you do when you feel fear? Do you cower or do you say, I'm going to keep moving forward? I'm going to keep delving inside and see where that fear is coming from and then confront it. However you wish to confront it. It may just be to ponder it and say, okay, well, next time I'm going to catch myself earlier in that process and see what's really going on. Do I really have something to fear or is something provoking it? And we start to do that more and more and more. Where does that come from? Just like ideas, just like motivation. Where does it come from? I don't know where it comes from. I think it comes from something that we're all connected to. And I think that is what metactions are connected to. More so than the others. And they're change agents. That's really what their mission is to get the ball rolling and get more people, get the idea of it into the collective consciousness of the whole. Get us pushing in that direction so that we can just consider it. I don't think the metatician's role is to say what the future looks like or how the new stuff is going to be. I think they're just to provide, they're way showers. They're to show you that it's feasible. We don't have to continue to live in fear and scarcity and allow the few to rule the many. In fact, where we're going, there are going to be no rulers. It's all going to be collaborative. That's what we're going to want. How do I know? Because I think it's kind of like once the parents are gone, then chaos reigns. Well, I think we're going to have some chaos, but the chaos doesn't need to be deadly and heavy and dark and all that. Will there be short periods of that? Yeah, okay, maybe. As people, bump around and try to figure out who's who and what's going on and what has happened to us. Because a lot of people say, I need to know what happened. I need to know how we got into that state. And you're not wrong for wanting to know that. And there will be many people. But meanwhile, the metacicians that were outliers along this path and were seeking out becoming awakened and enlightened, to me, they move on to the next thing. They've already pondered what happened to us. How did the elites take control of us? They've already pondered it because no one external is actually going to tell you the full truth. It's things that you just it starts coming online to you realize, well, the only way they could do it is if we actually gave them the power to do it. And that's all I need to know. Were they bad for doing it if we gave them the keys to do it? I don't know. I know it's for up to you. Some people say, well, I need indictments. I need arrests. I need executions. I need long prison terms. And for all these people that did that. Okay. If that's where you want to spend your energy, then karma says you're going to have to suffer through that time frame and until you realize that you're done with it and now move on to the next, whatever comes next for you. For the Metaticians, I believe what comes next is the waters of life.
Mm-hmm.
Where are the waters of life? Are they out there? No, I think it's in your pineal gland.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's enlightenment. I think it's internal. And then in discovering more and more about that, more and more things come online inside us. And through that, we start coloring the coloring book the way we want it to be, not the way someone dictated to us.
Mm-hmm.
We start drawing the pictures and we start filling that out. And then once we get that flowing internally, we start making it happen externally. Because through this whole ascension process, if we are indeed, say, gods, and we have been playing roles, then we're going to start awakening to our godlike abilities. Well, if we awaken too quickly, the Greek tragedies are a good example that we then can become overpowering and take it out on others.
Right.
And some may, in fact, do that. But I believe the majority of people slowly awakening will start to come to their senses about not needing the dark things to be necessarily resolved by something external, but realize all the answers are internally, are internal to you, and that I'm done with the old paradigm. Even the closure of the old paradigm can only serve but a short period of time until it's time to start looking forward and saying, but where am I going? Where am I going to live? How am I going to live going forward without worry or concern, but with joy and bliss and looking forward to it? Because no more are we going to be restricted and self-imposed isolation and status quo.
Yeah, to me, the more we focus on closing out or punishing or whatever, we're stuck in the past.
Right.
Because that's all stuff that's happened, and it prevents us from putting our energies and emotions and creative focus on the future, and allowing the beings that did whatever they did, they're going to have to reconcile that within themselves, regardless of what we do externally to them. So,
right. We each are our own judge. So those people who wronged us, the best we can really do is to forgive them so we can move on. Let them suffer their own fates that karma will inflict on them from their own choosing. They chose it. They actually volunteered to play these roles. Eventually, when we get through this and we move forward, we're going to thank them for playing those roles. We may not like them right now, but we're going to thank them because the learning and the experiencing was paramount for us. And everyone said, someone had to play all these evil roles. And many of them did not want to, but they loved us enough to go do it. Because they had the necessary ingredients to play those roles. While the majority of us said, oh, well, we'll suffer through what you put through us, or put us through these things. We'll suffer through it, but then we get to go celebrate. They're going to have a hard time celebrating. They get to miss out on a lot of the celebration because of the roles that they play. But eventually, we're going to realize that, and we're going to welcome them back in and say, thank you for what you did for us. Yes, we know it wasn't easy. We know that you had to do just really dark things. Because once we start really exploring our meditations, we start realizing there is no good, there is no bad, there is no evil and whatever. There's light and there's dark. And it's not like the old paradigm, light and dark. It's things that are hidden and things that are not. And we're moving out of things being hidden and moving into everything is going to be lit up.
Mm-hmm.
But in order to do that, it's going to light some things up that is going to shake us.
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah, and it's really on the path of reconnection, the path of reconnection and moving out of duality. We have to get past the division, and the division is, in this case, is judgment of yourself, judgment of someone else. And when we think about forgiving or punishing or whatever, all of that has underneath it judgment. And we each have to make our way through that internally in order to be able to release it externally and then fully channel our energy forward. Otherwise, we are holding on to some kind of judgment.
Yes, but all of these things were required.
Yes.
Even judgment was required. This is where the metaticians first started appearing, was the beyond the regular sentience. And we didn't have anything else to compare to. We had mastered the animal kingdom. So we started comparing ourselves to ourselves. And in order to have a baseline to push off of. And that judgment that had to happen that way for the outliers to start pushing out and saying, there's more out there. There's more to do than more to experience than what we've experienced so far. There's a whole new realm. And that is important to realize for the people who follow the metaticians. Because the metaticians are constantly tip of the spear, the way showers. They light the way. But they've realized that a bottleneck was ahead of us. And they could have just gone through the bottleneck and gone out the other side and just kept going. But they realized that they were but the hands. They needed, in order for them to fully realize the grandeur of what we're going into, one set of eyes or a few sets of eyes was not going to be enough. There was treasures, and the more we could come back together and going through the bottleneck, the more we could experience sympathetically through other people's eyes. And that's what the metaticians are now reforming around the bottleneck to actually light the way and pull the mass, the rest of the body to that point and help rebirth or birth the body through this bottleneck, this timeline 1, not timeline 2, timeline 1. And that's what the old paradigm leaders have dreaded, because they're still playing the role. And they've been dreading this awakening period that is culminating with proceeding through this bottleneck. They wanted to cause timeline 2, which was to avoid the whole awakening thing and to pursue, let's just say, less advantageous situation for humanity and more to their liking, even though it wasn't pretty. It was very dark. You can imagine all the stories that they've been trying to push on us, that the apocalypse is coming and that end times and all that. Well, they had free will. They were allowed to pursue that. But something has compelled the metaticians, and through the metaticians, the body, the rest of the body has been exerting their free will towards their choice. And the old paradigm leaders have been trying to push them towards another timeline. And there have been, we've been going back and forth or whatnot, but something has changed now that the body has finally decided, yes, we realized we were being coerced. We were being what the media is telling us is not the truth anymore. That they were showing us a play on TV every day, constantly. They were showing us something that they wanted us to believe in, not what was actually happening. They misrepresented the people. They misrepresented the actual percentages and numbers of people who were actually thinking like they were portraying on TV, but it wasn't. It even filtered down into the TV shows and movies that this is what people wanted. They wanted more deviant behavior. They wanted more
violence.
Violence. Everything is gun violence, and they wanted people who were confused about who they were and what they were made of and where they were going. Confusion. But the body has been under attack for quite a while, and without a large number of meditations, they felt somewhat lost. But as more and more people were waking up, the way showers, the metaticians, they started shining their light brighter and brighter, and the body started picking up on it. And the body now has turned towards that bottleneck and saying, oh, I was fearful of it. The media told me that was bad. Media said that was all conspiracy theory, or that there was danger on that side. I wasn't supposed to go towards that. But now they've realized, no, in fact, that's where we need to be. That is, because it's on the other side. To get through it, you have to have faith. And on the other side is all that you could ever want. But it isn't just handed to you. You have to basically create it through believing in it. Because that's what we are. That's what we do here. We gave our power of creation to others, and they created a world that we could believe in, and we kept doing it. But slowly but surely, we were getting unhappier and unhappier and unhappier. And it was the metaticians that were basically said, no, there's got to be more than just propagation and working and whatever, and then retirement. No, there's got to be more. So they started searching out other avenues. And when they did, something was fed back to them. People were starting to be shown brighter futures and more encompassing times that were based, that the premises were different than the old this paradigm we've been in, with scarcity and time based, and you got to work. Everything is based on work. Our schedules are based around work. Well, the new premise is the new premise of the new paradigm on the other side of the bottleneck is not based on scarcity. It's based on abundancy. It's based on we are all interconnected. We all communicate on multiple levels. Verbal communication is but a very small amount. Nonverbal communication is much more encompassing than verbal communication. All of that is starting to fill out as the people start believing in what's being shown to them from the metaphysicians.
Yeah, because if you think about it, like you said, we're creator beings, and we create with what we believe or what we project. And so the trick was, get us to believe a certain thing, a certain pattern about society or about countries or about the future, and we were creating that. So what you're talking about with the metastaticians is we're thinking another reality into being, and the creation and the energy of the people that are waking up, that are pondering those realities, are then creating a new way. It's not like an old forceful way of having to attack the old system. It's just creating that new paradigm and believing into that, and we all get carried in, or those that believe it get carried into that belief.
Well, in coming through the birth canal into 3D, we're inducted and put into a trance of parameters to live inside the 3D reality. And that, I mean, you can fathom what those are. I mean, this has to do with, you must go to school, you must pursue this kind of career, and work this like this, and you must
be in this kind of religion in this country.
You must earn the right to live here.
Yeah.
And you must have, you must get married, and then you must have kids. It's, do you really have a say in that? Or is it just pretty much everyone doing the same thing as what everyone else is doing? Well, that's what we're trying to get away from. And the new thing is, no one's going to be going around telling you what to do. But many people are going to be confused on that side, because they're not used to that kind of freedom, where no one's going to come around and make sure that you go to work, because it isn't going to be work-based. It's going to be based on, what do you want to do? What do you want to accomplish? What is it that you want to experience? It's going to be experience-based. It's going to be less about logic and what's going on in your head, and more about what moves your heart. These are the things that the metastaticians are paving the way toward. Just so people are clear on the metastaticians, sentience is what sets us apart from the animals, the rest of the animal kingdom. Even though they may have sparks of sentience here and there, humanity, if you look at the whole of it relative to the rest of the animals, we have much more sentience. Okay, but sentience only takes you so far. Like I said, you end up mastering, with sentience, we end up mastering the animal kingdom. We get the animals to work for us. We get the environment to work for us. We uncover technologies and we make them work for us. But it's all towards the same ends. We're still working. It's still based on scarcity. It's all those things. Metastaticians are working towards something different. These are the way showers. These are the star seeds. Anything you want to say, these are a step up from regular sentience. So it's metascience. It's realizing I am but the hand of God, or the hand of source, or the hand of the collective. And my mission, should you choose to accept it, is to show the way, but go out and discover what that means. What does that look like and feel like? And then bring that back to the body and shine your light. Don't preach to them. Just show them enough to where they get exposed to it and want to ask questions and want to know more. It's only when they open their minds by saying, I want to know more, that you can really talk to them. Because the rest of the time, if they're into a their normal routine and they're falling back on their blind sentience, you can't really, you could talk to them about the weather. Hey, we're talking about the weather, but you're not going to be able to show them this stuff because they're exerting their free will to say, no, not right now. I don't want to know about that. And they have a right to that. But that doesn't mean the other metaphysicians can't go out and explore and start to shine the light for others. And the thing is that the numbers of metaphysicians is growing exponentially. That's why we're seeing more chaos and whatnot. This is not a bad thing. This is people throwing off the yoke of the old paradigm. And in so doing, they don't know all the freedoms on the other side. They just know that the old system doesn't work for them anymore. So it's kind of like, how do I quit my job? Okay, well, how do I then get by if I don't have a job that's going to end up pay? It's figuring that out. I don't have the answer for you. I know how I'm doing it. I know I've heard and read about how others are doing it. There is no one way to do it. It's whatever resonates to you. Are you hearing the calling from that other paradigm where it's no longer fear-based? It's no longer, money-based and work-based and scarcity-based. If you want to stay over there, you're welcome to do that. I'm not going to tell you you're wrong or you can't do that. But tell me what the long-term prospect is in thinking that. Can we discuss it? Because if a way is right, then it can stand scrutiny. I'm willing to throw my things out there and have people scrutinize it because I want to know more. If mine doesn't work, I want to know why. I want people to show me or tell me that your idea is all fantasy land. Okay, that's great, but explain to me why this world we're in right now isn't fantasy land geared towards the good of a few people who actually have decided. We all decided to give them the keys to the amusement park and let them run it. Well, have they run it for the betterment of all humankind? We may not be here right now. We may not be pondering an alternate, but they did, and we learned. That's the whole point. We came here is to live and learn and say, I'm now ready to make decisions towards what I want to live and learn next. And it's not the same old.
Yeah. And what one being's creation or desire, it could look very different than the other. So we've talked before about we have 300 million people in this country and we're all relatively similar.
Very similar.
Clothing, desire, it's incredible. So the chaos piece that we're going to experience is a creative chaos where people recognize, well, I'm not going to be looking around to see what everybody else is wearing or everybody else is doing to then define what I'm going to do. If I'm drawn by my creative spirit, it may look vastly and probably should look vastly different than the other beings. So it's the comfort of, that's the fear piece. We're used to being in the protection of the crowd, and only stepping forward as far as, the crowd stepping forward.
Right. And what you're discussing is not mandated diversity.
No.
Because the diversity we've been talking about that have been pushed on us, that's all mandated diversity, and it's not true diversity. It's diverse only within the box.
Right.
That's it.
Yeah. And only based on what we look like.
Yeah, that's it. What we're going to is organic diversity. It's coming from each one of us. It's saying, I'm not going to keep my hair short. I mean, I'm a former Marine. And I said, no, I'm not doing that anymore. I don't have to play by that. I don't know what I want my hair to be or whatnot, but I know I didn't want it to be the way. So I just basically said, I'm just going to let it do its thing,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm going to focus where my energy's where I want to focus, which is internally.
Mm-hmm.
That's where I'm spending my energy, is internally, to say, how do I want to feel? I don't want to feel the way I've been feeling, which is trapped. I want
Mm-hmm.
to feel open, like no restrictions, many, many, many options.
Mm-hmm.
I cherish that time coming where I have too many choices. I'm not going to be trapped by too many choices.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just going to say, how do you eat an elephant?
Mm-hmm.
One bite at a time. I'm just going to start somewhere
Mm-hmm.
and let my heart guide me and just start going. And meanwhile, I'll be experiencing other people as we bump into each other. Instead of out of
Mm-hmm.
anger and judgment, it'll be, hey, tell me about what you've been up to. I'll tell you what I've been up to.
Mm-hmm.
And we'll see that. And then we'll start
Mm-hmm.
passing it more amongst ourselves. And before we know it, we start to clarify more and more about that fantasy land that we want. And then we start to build it from the inside out,
Mm-hmm.
not based on the old paradigm of everything's got to be a square building and
Mm-hmm.
it's got to have a roof like this. And
Right. Got to fit this code.
yeah,
And
it's got
this
to fit this code and you got to live by these laws. We don't need laws. Where we're going, if we don't have that mind programming pushed on us, everyone is instilled with right and wrong.
Mm-hmm.
That's all we really need. We will govern ourselves through ourselves. You will be responsible at a minimum what you do and how you hold yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And it won't be a matter of someone holding a sword above your head.
Mm-hmm.
It will be you wanting to do it because this gives you the most freedom.
Mm-hmm.
No one's going to be telling you what you can't do. You're going to be more interested in pursuing all the things you can do.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas in this world, it's all about what you can't do.
Mm-hmm.
They try to tell us, oh, well, you can be president or whatnot. No, you can't.
Mm-hmm. Right.
No, you can't.
Mm-hmm.
No one can be president unless they vetted you and you went through their brainwashing and agreed to their agendas.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a lot of corporate jobs that are just like that.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
You could get there if you would abide by their needs and their wants.
Mm-hmm.
But what we're talking about is each of our wants and needs and what we want to pursue.
Mm-hmm.
That's what they're afraid of.
Yep.
But I'm not going to fight them. I'm not going to tell them, no, I'm not going to do that. I'll tell them whatever they need to hear, so they just leave me alone, and I'm going to go about doing my thing.
Mm-hmm.
They say, well, you need to pay this. Okay, fine. Okay, pay this. And then I'm going to go do it. I'm not going to fight. Where they get you is not when you do something simple, breaking the law or whatnot. It's when you go lie about it.
Mm-hmm.
That's where they then get you. So I'm not going to lie about it. They say, were you speeding? Yes, I was speeding. Do you know how fast you were going? I believe I was doing 64 in a 55. Yeah, that's what I got you at. Okay. Will you sign this? No, I'm not really going to sign anything.
Mm-hmm.
They want you to sign stuff. Mm-hmm. I'm not going to sign it. I'll pay the fine. I'll do whatever, but I'm not going to sign something.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So I just want them to leave me alone, and then I'll go do this. If they say, well, you need to go spend some time over here because you won't do this for us. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Meanwhile, yeah, they've got me externally, but internally they don't.
Mm-hmm.
And internally I'm getting bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger, so that my inside is much bigger than what my outside would say.
Mm-hmm.
Because that's where my dreams are more realistic than this world.
Mm-hmm.
I just don't know how to decipher them. I get these, short video clips, and then I get these stills, and then I get more video clips. And yeah, I can fill out some of the detail, but I can't put it in full context.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's what's going to start coming online, is being able to put more of that in context. Wouldn't it be funny if dream world and reality inverted?
Mm-hmm. Like if this was the VR.
The issue is it will, but we can't handle it yet. So this is what the awakening and enlightening process is to begin to understand all your powers and abilities without then, just demolishing the matrix.
Yeah.
What we want to do is we want to keep living in the matrix, but we just don't want to live the way it's been because we were children and we didn't really understand all the ins and outs. Now we're starting to realize they were taking advantage of us. They could have chosen another path where they didn't take advantage of us. But we enticed them because we started getting complacent. They started taking advantage of us because their programming was kind of like our programming. If this, then do this. Else do this. If we had done some of these other things, they would have brought this future along. But we didn't. We started getting complacent, and we started just, was it our fault that we got complacent? It doesn't matter. It just, this is what happens, then this is what happens in response to that. Individuals do it this way, collectively we do it this way. And then we start to realize, wow, it doesn't matter what I do. I'm still stuck in the same old. I still got to work this many hours a week, even if it's, you got freedom. You don't have to work that job. You can go work this job.
Yeah. Or you can work 10 hours a day, not 8 hours a day.
Yeah, exactly. And I've done all those things, and it didn't bring me more happiness. I realized you're basically just bumping into a different wall. That's it. You're not bumping in the front wall now. You're bumping in this side wall. And then you say, okay, I'm done with that. You go bump into the back wall. And you realize, no. But the fight isn't out there. The fight is not external. It's internal to say, okay, where are those switches inside here that make me start to see more of what I can develop into? Because the world doesn't change, we change. We change and we bring the world with us, and it modifies according to our needs.
Yeah, because we project it out and recreate. We create based on that new configuration.
Right. So the whole red pill, blue pill is a free will thing. That's why it's presented to us. Why have they, the powers that be, why can they do certain things to us but not other things to us? Because they could easily just destroy us or do this or whatever. Well, there's the whole karma thing, and the secret to it is the free will. If they abide by free will, meaning they tell you what they're going to do to you before they do it to give you a chance to fight back or choose something else. But a lot of times we don't read the fine print. We basically just sign it. We sign it and whatever. We think we have it. The only choice we have is to sign the document because we want what they're giving us. Yeah. But we have many more options. We just, if we don't turn the light on inside us, we can't see all those other options. So.
Absolutely. And the interesting thing about that, that was, I think if you could read that, what was you read out loud, but I think if somebody could read through it, it's like there's so many layers to that. It was it was crafted so well that to me, it's like it misses something if they can't read it. So I'm wondering about us typing it up in the description or something.
I always do this in the videos, and maybe people didn't realize. If you look at the description, I typically write my list in there. So I may not write every word. I'll write the headers, or sometimes I put some of the descriptions in there too, depending on what kind of speaks to me. But this one, I will go ahead and write up the whole thing in, even though it's quite long. I will type it all up in the description so you can read it yourself. The video has its own energy about it, and then reading it, you can go back and read it as many times you want and see how it activates you, or brings up these questions and whatnot. And I hope it does. I hope more people start to comment and saying, this is what it did for me. This is what it showed me. It brought up these questions for me. and give other people the chance to start being activated and then provide their viewpoint, their perspectives.
Yeah.
What we're trying to do is not eliminate people's perspectives. We want to start being able to appreciate other perspectives. That's multi-dimensional beings, is start to understand. That starts to bring us back together. If you are a single individual and you believe you have, just your viewpoint, your perspective, that's just one. Okay. Well, that's lonely. That's why we feel all these things concerning loneliness and whatnot, because naturally we are a collective. So we're going back to that. That's when you start to be able to empathetically reach out to other people and start to, even though you have your opinion, you're hearing someone else give you a differing opinion and you start to get it. Doesn't mean you take their opinion. It just means, oh, I understand. I see where you're coming from. No, I don't, I'm not going to hold that opinion, but I can at least understand that opinion. I believe that's what we're doing. We're starting to understand more important. And that brings us, because we had to get separated in order to break the blind sentience phase that we were in. And that's already happened. Now we've got to go through the somewhat chaotic phase of coming back together. How do we do that? Well, I don't know. We've never done this while we've been living. So we're figuring it out as we go. But the good thing is we're immersed with beings who are troubleshooters. We're full of people who have troubleshooting capability. The limiting factor really is, how much empathy do you have? How much empathy do you want to have towards your fellow human, fellow being, I'll say, to where I want to understand them. I want to know where they're coming from, because every point matters. Even if it's crazy, we as a species have to do something with it. We have to place it somewhere. We have to understand it so that no one gets left behind. That's the whole thing behind where we go one, we go all. It's all of us. It's, what's the point in you getting to the finish line and no one else makes it there?
Absolutely.
I don't want to be the fastest. I don't want to be the strongest. I don't want to be, and no one else gets there. I want to share that. I want more people to think they're brilliant. I want more people to think they're gorgeous. I want more people to think they're healthy and fit. I want more people to think that they can address anything thrown at them. Because imagine a future where everyone believes that. No one lacks for anything because they feel like they can address anything come to them. Now it's just a matter of, hey, I'm going to wear those shoes today. I don't want to wear those shoes. Really? That's what your focus is? Yeah. And I don't know. I don't want to be white today. I'm going to be
purple.
Purple. I'm going to be pink. Then I'm going to be orange. And then I'm going to be, race doesn't matter. We came here to play a role, so we picked parameters, and in order to set the stage so that we would have to address certain existential questions about who we are and what we are, and well, what gives you the right to talk like that, or what gives you the right to question this or whatnot, and then you have to come to grips with it. A lot of people will work to suppress you. That's not unusual. But what do you do with that? Do you allow yourselves to be suppressed? There's no right or wrong. It's a matter of, what do you want? Are you willing to be placated with status quo? Okay. No one's going to tell you not to.
And if you're happy with that, that's you. Yeah.
Meanwhile, the metaphysicians are out there saying, I feel compelled to go pursue more. I know there's more than what we've been herded into. So that's what we're doing.
Yeah. Well, and I think back to your comment about the dialogue and stuff. We don't say that we know everything about
Nope.
everything. So we're just sharing what's coming up for us. And so, there's very few people comment and things like, well, we'd love to have dialogue and discussion. We enjoy, somebody else having a different perspective. So if you agree with us and you want to put it there, if you don't agree with us and you want to foster a dialogue, we are more than happy with that. This is our way of opening that door for us to kind of have that discussion or have interaction around these things.
Yeah. If I know everything, then I've closed down and cul-de-sac all avenues out of my status quo.
Right.
And that means I'm going nowhere. So I'm more lean towards I know nothing because I'm opening all doors.
Yeah.
Because I'm basing everything on my logic mind in this 3D world. And I think that's a very, very, very small fraction of what we're made of. We just came here to play roles. We're in a play and we're play acting. Yes, it's real life for you. Yes, there are consequences along that. But really, it's just living and learning. You live in order to set the stage for the learning. But there's a point where universe, collective consciousness, whatever, source, God, whatever you want to say, says, okay, enough of that. Okay, because you kind of maxed out the learning from those set of parameters. There are other sets of parameters. There's other levels of this video game that you can go play. And that's that's what the metaphysicians have been given. Who knows where it came from? I don't think it really matters.
Right.
But it's not just one person. It's not just a few handful of people. It's growing quickly. It's a fairly large number. A lot of them don't even speak the same language or know exactly what we're going into or what phraseology to work. It doesn't matter. We just know that there's another hill and there's something else on the other side of that. And we've been told, don't go over there. Well, who's anyone? Do I want to live in a reality where they tell you where not to go?
Well, my personality is that's where I want to go more than, if that's the case.
Well, if that's the case, you know what? They're telling you not to go. They're not telling you not to go over there near that bottleneck because it's scary and it's dangerous.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's not.
So, but to each his own.
Yeah.
I'm not going to judge anyone if they don't want to go. But my conversation with them is going to be fairly limited because they're willing to stay in the blind sentience, and their conversation is going to be corralled by those parameters, whereas others are opening those corral doors and they're venturing out saying, hey, there's a lot more out here. And those are the type of people that I want to get the ball rolling with and get them speaking. I don't know what the answers are, but let's just start exploring. No more people telling us, no, you can't do that, don't go there. And then we stay within and near the body where we just energetically, all this new findings kind of just bleeds out of us. And the more and more people, the body start to ask, hey, where'd you get that? How did you get that glow? When did you start being able to do that? And that's what we want. So we can then answer questions. And when we feel that they've had enough and we're not preachers. We say, okay, that's all you want to hear. And then we go on and go do our thing until they decide they want more. That's what we're doing.
Well, it changes the nature of dialogue and discussion, because in the past it was typically you're trying to convince, if you didn't agree with the other person, you're trying to convince that other person of your point of view. And this one is, let me share mine and you share yours and you go, oh, well, that piece of that one sounds interesting and that piece of that one sounds interesting, but I hold my own.
But we got to get to that point where people aren't so insecure about what they know and what they think that they are not willing to hear what other people have to say in their opinions about things.
Without trying to convince them to be,
Right.
like, it's not this
And that's
volley.
another important
Yeah.
aspect of going to this bottleneck. This is where things start to get scraped off, like ego.
Yeah.
Will it go completely away? No, I don't think so. I think what it ends up doing is it ends up getting transmuted into a new position within inside us, because everything out there that we run into, that's us. That's us internally. What we're trying to do is transmute it, move the furniture around to where it's more comfortable. Because up till now, it's almost like we've been living in someone else's house. Now we're trying to say, someone says, okay, we understand you don't like this house. It's someone else's house. What house do you want? Well, I don't know. Well, let's go venture out and go find out. But if we don't allow people to voice their opinion, we can't see what all the options are.
Yeah.
But they kept us shoehorned in here with our ego so that we couldn't stand someone else having a different opinion than us, or we had to convince them, you need to see things my way. When we stop needing to convince people to see it my way, and we realize my way is limited, I understand that. I don't need to feel insecure about that. To me, it's just a starting point. And then when I learn more, that's a new starting point. And when I learn some more, that's a new starting point.
Yep.
Other people aren't judging you. It's you judging you. So how do we get to a point where you don't judge yourself anymore? You just fly free. I think that's what we're trying to get to.
Yeah.
No one's telling you. No one's in charge to tell you what to do and what not to do. So.
Yeah, and we're all still learning that,
Yeah.
There's very few people that have completely mastered that piece of it because it was so vastly ingrained in us. So,
yeah, well, we weren't going to master in this 3D reality because in coming in, we gave the keys to someone else. We were never going to master it. We were never going to have our say. We empowered someone else. Using our own abilities, we empowered someone else. Now we're taking back the keys, but in so doing, it's going to change the landscape. And that's the way it should be. We're going to appreciate it so much more now, having lived in someone else's house.
Yeah.
So,
great.
All right, I think we're done.
Good deal. See you next time. Bye.